This show is going to have a little bit of everything. Cyclones men's basketball, Cyclones football, career talk with Travis Hines from the Des Moines Register. We're going to preview awesome deals and awards that you, the listener, can win next week if you tune into the show. And we'll have Beyonce too. We'll have Beyonce talk. So it's going to fulfill your Friday need and get you kickstarted for the weekend perfectly here on the Media Row podcast with me, Justin Miller, sponsored, of course, by Kelly's Little Nipper and Stevens Automotive and Sales. Like I said in that quick preview, we are having someone who I have gotten to know a little better over the few years that I was working with KASI and at KXNO. Travis Hines, a writer for the Des Moines Register. You know him from his work with the Cyclones men's basketball team and covering Cyclones football. On the show to really talk about everything. And one of the main reasons I wanted to get him on, with it being the NBA Finals, with everyone being so blown away by the performances from Tyrese Haliburton and the entire Indiana Pacers squad, wanted to hear some Tyrese Haliburton stories from the guy who covered him for a few years at Iowa State, and Travis Hines. So really excited for that interview. But before we get to it, need to give a shout out to our guys at Kelly's Little Nipper, 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. Kelly's Little Nipper, perfect spot to just sit out, have a drink, and have a good time. Great food, great drink, and even better community. Over there at 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. Make sure to go check out the historic Kelly's Little Nipper, and when you do, make sure to let them know that Media Row sent you. I've been trying to get you on the show here for a little bit, but this last time I was shoved to the side, and it's for a good cause. You went and saw Beyonce.
I did. Justin, I love you, but Beyonce comes first. So I had to get out to Chicago, watch Soldier Field. We went on that first night. Where I don't know if you saw, but it looked like it lit up the internet there for a while, or it got delayed like 3 hours because of the weather. So I was huddled in the very narrow confines of the Soldier Field concourses for a few hours, but luckily they had some cold beverages, so that got us through. We made it. The show was great.
Is it your first time seeing Beyonce?
It's my first time seeing Beyonce. First time ever seeing a stadium show. So that was quite the departure from like going to see something at Hoyt Sherman Place. So it was fun. It was fun. Highly recommend it.
I've never done a stadium show before. So I don't know, because part of me is like, that'd be really cool. But then there's so many bad areas that you could be sat in. So I don't know. Would you recommend doing another stadium show or no?
I would do it again. I mean, because it becomes, obviously the music is number one, first and foremost, but it's more of a performance, I would say. It's not like 2 weeks before I went and saw Beyonce, I actually went up to Minneapolis to see Sturgill Simpson in like an auditorium or a theater, the Armory up in Minneapolis. And that's obviously a much different kind of deal where there's 7,000 people versus, whatever Soldier Field holds 60 or 70 for a concert. So it's much more about the spectacle than just the music, where Sturgill was 3 hours of just him and his band shredding. So they were both great, both different. That shows you how different my summer has been, or my musical taste. Sturgill Simpson 1 week, Beyonce the next.
I was gonna mention that you're all over the place, but I like that because I don't know. I never like boxing myself in with music. I like listening to everything, because then if you're working out or if you're at work and you have like a Spotify playlist, it's almost fun when it jumps like that, where you're like, oh, all the single ladies. Oh, now Sturgill Simpson song.
Oh, if you want something absolutely wild, like my Spotify is just a horror show because I have 3 young kids. So we've got Kids Bop on there. We've got Spider-Man, Scooby-Doo, and then Beyonce and Sturgill Simpson. So it is just an absolute train wreck of like your favorite things to listen to. It is absolutely makes no damn sense.
But Travis, I do appreciate you coming on the show today. I promise we weren't just going to spend 20 minutes talking about music and concerts. I wanted to get you on to talk about Tyrese Haliburton and all the chaos he's been involved in and just your time covering him. But want to start with your career, because in the summer, what I've been having is journalists, broadcasters, people that I've looked up to come on the show and really kind of just talk about themselves for a little bit. And so how did you How did you come to be the writer for Iowa State with the Des Moines Register?
Yeah, I mean, how far back you want to go?
As
I grew
far
up in
back as you want.
I grew up in the Twin Cities of Minnesota, and then went to school at UW-Madison, really with the intention of being a business major, of which I quickly crashed out in. That was not for me. And then I crashed out so bad I couldn't get into the journalism school at Wisconsin. So my official major was film, radio, and TV, because it got me something close to, even back in 20 years ago. I'm very old, Justin. It was clear like that media, like even if you wanted to be a writer, which was always my goal in Sports Illustrated, or excuse me, in sports journalism, was to be a writer. Like you'd have to have the other components. Like there would be storytelling and video and audio. Like even in 2005, 2006, 2007, that was pretty clear. So that was my major in college. I got hooked up. The headquarters for RotoWire Fantasy Sports, if you've heard of them, is in
No.
Madison.
Okay.
And yeah, they were partnered with Yahoo for a long time. Great company to work for. So I interned for them for my last 3 years there, and that kind of opened the door. I worked at KFan for a summer, and then the local Clear Channel. That was before they were iHeart. Again, I'm very old. Sports Talk at Madison for a year, and then I was moving to Ames, whether or not I had a job in 2009 because my wife was going to grad school there. And like 2 weeks before we were moving, I got offered a job at the Marshalltown newspaper, the Times Republican, by Ross Teedy, the sports editor who is still there, and worked there for 3 years. And then got the job at the Ames Tribune covering Iowa State basketball. At Marshalltown, I really only covered high school sports, tried to do as much college stuff as I could, but it was mostly high school. In 2012, I got hired by Bobby Legess at the Ames Tribune to cover Iowa State basketball, and still a lot of high school sports. Like I really, until I became a sports editor in 2016, it was probably 60% Iowa State stuff, 40% high school stuff. And that dialed back when I had to take on managerial job in 2016. Then in 2020, Gannett and Gatehouse, which are two mega corporations that own a bunch of newspaper, essentially merged. And that's how I landed at the Register, because Gannett owned the Register, Gatehouse owned the Ames Tribune. I stole my buddy Tommy Birch's job, essentially. And he got moved to his features role, where he is obviously doing, thriving, and worked with Randy Peterson for, gosh, what's that now? In 4 years as the beat writer to his columnist before he retired last year and took his job. So I guess that's the Cliff Notes version of the career, but kind of came up the old way of going from a very small, I mean, there's 20,000 people, I think, that live in Marshalltown, to Ames, which is kind of like a mid-sized paper, at least in our neck of the woods. And then, the Register, which is obviously the biggest paper in the state. So it's been I guess it would have been the typical way to come up 30 years ago. Certainly not now. I think it's probably more the exception than the rule.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about when you take a job at a really small town newspaper like Marshalltown, is there kind of like an art as you look back and reflect on those moments of that grind of like, are you, when you reflect back on it, are you pretty appreciative of what you went through in that grind?
Yeah, I mean, like that was the working at Marshalltown and Fort Ross was great. Like, I mean, I got to do so many things. I had to take my own pictures, and I am an awful photographer. My second day on the job, I thought I broke a camera and was going to get fired. Turns out I'm just that bad a photographer that the pictures were that terrible. The camera wasn't actually broken. But I mean, you're taking your own stats, you're driving, like, and I don't remember the numbers, but we covered probably less than a dozen high schools, but more than six, seven, or eight. And like some of them were like in Ackley from Marshalltown, which is like 40 or 50 minutes away from Marshalltown. And I lived in Ames. So I like lived in my car for those 3 years, driving all over the state. I mean, you're talking 16, 18-hour days covering two, three different things, copy editing for yourself and for the other two guys in our sports department. So, I mean, it was a lot of work, but I have found that, like, for me, and I think there's probably more talented people that can do it a different way, that really the only thing you can control is how hard you work and in terms of moving on in your career. And I don't know that my wife probably loved those 16 or 18-hour days or 70 or 80-hour weeks constantly. But it definitely, and I don't think I could do it now, but it definitely, like, you learn a lot and you learn about what hard work, relatively speaking. Like, we're not, digging ditches or breaking rocks here or saving lives. But like, relatively speaking, what hard work looks like and what it takes to get better. 'Cause I didn't know a damn thing when I was 23 years old. So it's the best part about it, I think, looking back, it's just a lot of reps. Like, you got to, I mean, I covered everything from Iowa State football to bowling, like Marshalltown High School bowling. I remember covering I don't even think it was a state meet. I think it was like a sectional meet in Marshalltown a couple times. So like, and you're working 6 days a week, 5 days, or 6 days a week, a lot. So you just get a lot of reps. And I think that helped a lot, especially for somebody who did not come from a traditional J school background. I had never written a newspaper article before I remember I went up to Eldora to write a preview about South Hardin football. That was the first time I'd ever written anything. So it
So
was
how do you
an
land a
adjustment.
job without that on your resume? How did you get it?
Well, luckily I mean, I think Ross was desperate, number one. I definitely was not his first pick. How far down the list he went, I don't know. And some of that, like, I think my salary that first year was like $19,000. So like, you had to be willing to work really hard for absolutely no money. But I did have the RotoWire thing. Like, so I had, for that, a lot of it was like the short blurb updates, like what now are tweets back
Hmm.
then. Like, you'd have to go scour local newspaper to say, Aaron Rodgers has a bruised thumb. Maybe he'll play this weekend. Or, hey, the New York Rangers are trying out a new power play line. Like, you'd go write those blurbs for those players that would show up in people's inboxes, or I think on the RotoWire website as well. And then they had a football magazine, which I actually have right behind me here. So in 2009, I actually got published in this RotoWire magazine. So like, that was a big deal. Like, my parents thought that was pretty cool.
That
So
is
I did at
cool.
least have some clips when I got hired in '09, but they were pretty minimal from what I recall. And there might have been some other freelance stuff that I did in college that now, 20 years later, I don't recall as much, but I at least did have some clips available to send.
The fantasy football magazine you just showed, was that kind of your first moment where you felt like you'd been seen? You felt like this was something you'd be able to pursue?
It was really cool to have a byline. Like, I think that was the first time I had a byline, like writing those like blurbs. You didn't, like, it'd show up in the system that you had written it, but nobody knew or cared.
Hmm.
So it was cool to have a byline and something physical to hold in 2009. And, I was moving to Ames that year regardless. So it was kind of like, I hope this works out. I remember, I think I sent out, I don't remember. I could probably go back and search my email inbox, but I bet it was 200 cold call emails to newspapers. And I had been working at a radio station at that time too, just looking for anything and anyone to hire me, in and around the areas. Cause we were also looking at maybe moving to the Kansas City area. Uh, and I think I mean, again, 200 is probably too much. Let's say 150. I bet I got like 5 to 10 responses back. Um, and they were like, no, we're good. And then the Marshalltown job came open, and I applied for that, interviewed. They initially offered it to someone else who turned them down, and then I got hired. So it was cool again, like, to have that physical uh, magazine that no matter what, like whether it worked out or not, I had that, and that was cool.
So now you've been with the Des Moines Register covering Cyclone football, Cyclones basketball. When was the last time you had a pinch me moment now?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think you do get desensitized to it, and you try not to, but you do when you're been doing it now for 15 years. But like, I think it would have been the Big 12 tournament championship game. You're sitting courtside, which is incredible. Like, to have those courtside seats, like, I think, number one, it's just cool. And number two, it does help us do our job and give readers and audiences, something that they couldn't get. And like, those seats hardly exist anymore. And I get why. Like, if they can sell them for money, for a lot of money, like, I get it. But it does help us do our jobs. And I look over to my right, and Shaquille O'Neal's standing or sitting next to me. So that was like, oh, okay. And like, Shaquille O'Neal, like, I was like, I think 7 years old when he got drafted. And as you imagine, can imagine I was a basketball fiend at that time of my life, and Shaq was probably first among my favorite players. So that was like, I'm 37 years old at that point, and I look over and it felt like I was seven again for a very brief moment. And I remembered I had a game to cover.
7 because of the height differential. You felt like
I
you're
mean,
3 feet tall.
I shook his hand and my hand just disappeared. So it was like, oh, okay. Yep, that's what 7'2" looks like.
Is that up there with one of your favorite encounters with a celebrity in your time working in journalism?
Yeah, I don't even know that I have very many more. I mean, like and they don't feel like celebrity encounters when you're interviewing somebody, right? Like that's our
Yeah,
job. Like I
yeah.
remember the weird one it would have been, gosh, 2014 when the Warriors came to play a preseason game at Wells Fargo Arena. And at that point, they weren't the Warriors yet. That was the year they won the title, but it was in the preseason. And so everybody only cared about Harrison Barnes locally here. So they were swarming Harrison Barnes for interviews and all that. I remember me and Birchie interviewed Steph Curry. We kind of had to wait around for him because he was getting treatment or something. So it's me and Birchie interviewing Steph Curry by ourselves in like the back hallway at Wells Fargo Arena. And then that was the year where he and the Warriors absolutely went bonkers. So like that was kind of cool in the moment and even cooler in retrospect where, now a guy who's probably what, top 8, top 10, top 12 of all time in the NBA
Yeah.
was like just like this little dude that we were interviewing. Like from my recollection, like I was a taller, bigger man than Steph Curry. Like he's not a big dude. He towered over Birch though. So like that was pretty cool that I remember. And then like when I worked at Marshalltown, I talked to Kirk Herbstreit for a story. When you're 23, 24, like that was pretty cool. But otherwise, like a lot of it kind of because they become people that you know and work with that the celebrity factor or the starstruck factor goes away pretty quick.
What do you do at this point of the year? I mean, this is always people say the slow point, where you have just really regular season baseball and NBA and NHL are wrapping up. But for Des Moines, Iowa, I mean, there's not a whole lot for Iowa State, no professional team. So what do you do right now with the Register?
I go to Beyonce concerts. That's it.
Hell yeah.
I mean,
Hell
like
yeah.
the interest in Iowa, like in college sports generally, and then specifically for what I do for Iowa State, football, basketball, men's basketball, women's basketball, like the interest in that is year round. Like I don't need games to cover for people to care about those things. So then it's just becoming, finding story angles, writing about Tyrese Haliburton going to the finals. Like there's always something going on. And then like again with that Ireland game in a week zero, my summer's over the last week of July. Like that's when Iowa State media availability starts is in July this year. So like it's not as big a window as you think. And in a normal year, it's that first week in August. But essentially for us that cover college football, your summer's over. And I try to get Eugene, my counterpart, like we basically have from April 1 to August 1st to take a year's worth of vacation because I'm not taking like maybe a couple days during a bye week, but other than that, like it's go, go, go
Yeah.
nonstop from August 1 through the NCAA tournament. And now with the transfer portal, like even April is kind of insane with how much turnover and news and interest there is. So it's now you're really looking almost at May 1 to August 1 to try to take some vacation, spend time with your family, and decompress. Like that's a little inside baseball, but it is like we're still human beings.
Still
Vacations
gotta
are
go
good.
see
Yeah,
the Queen in Chicago.
got to go see Queen Bay.
I do want to talk about Tyrese Halliburton. When was the first time you interviewed him or just met him? Because I'm trying to remember what year he was drafted. Was he drafted in 2019? Was that the
He
year he
was
was
drafted
drafted?
in 2020.
2020.
Yeah, whatever. I think the draft that year was in November because of COVID.
Okay.
But he arrived at Iowa State in 2018. And I think like it's probably a well-worn story at this time that he was basically an afterthought. That 2018 recruiting class, people were like over the moon excited about. Like the number one guy was Taylor Horton Tucker, who was a top 50 guy. George Condit was a guy that people were really excited about. As he was his dad played football at Iowa State. I think he was a top 100 recruit, 6'11", like not a guy that Iowa State at that time had gotten very often and out of Chicago, which is a really same with Horton Tucker, really tough place to win those high level recruits. And then Zion Griffin, like people were really excited about. I think he committed to Iowa State like a week after Kansas had offered him, if I'm recalling correctly, 7 years later. And Haliburton was this dude from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, that was like everybody thought at that time was probably going to UNI. And then you looked at he's the fourth guy in this recruiting class. Iowa State had a bunch of dudes like transferring in, like that was Shayok's first and only year, Jacobson's first year, Nick Weiler-Babb was in his
Oh yeah.
senior year. Like there was not a lot of room for Tyrese to get minutes, and he was an afterthought. And I remember interviewing him, probably wouldn't have been that summer. I think it would have been like that October, maybe before the season started, like the whole scrum of three, four, five, six of us reporters. And somebody asked him about redshirting. And it was not a dumb question. It was a very much like, you're the fourth of four guys in a recruiting class. And like you had Lindell Wigginton was the starter that year as a sophomore after almost going pro. Like there was like I have always joked that with Tyrese, I'm sure I've written it, he should have gone to UNI. It made no damn sense for him to come to Iowa State. There was no path for him to play immediately. He was skinny. The shot, we've all seen that shot. Like it just did not look like he was going to be a guy that would immediately translate into a Big 12 player. And like there was a lot of pressure on Steve that year too, because they had been bad the year before, which they needed a reset after the Hoiberg years. And then you basically got a bonus year with Naz and Monte and Deontay coming back in 16, 17. Then they were bad 17, 18, which they had to get younger. Like that was just like whatever. But like there was some pressure then for Steve Prohm to show that he was going to build back up. And there was a ton of talent on that team. And Tyrese did not look like there was a spot for him. And then, you know, we all know the story. You know, Wigginton breaks his foot. Tyrese goes into the starting lineup and looks like an absolute connector, like the ultimate connector on that team. Like probably should have been playing point guard. Was really playing off the ball a ton that year because Nick Weiler-Babb was playing the point guard. But Tyrese was just a dude that could do everything. And on that team, there were so many personalities, and we all saw how it absolutely unraveled at the end. And a lot of that, I think, was due to interpersonal relationships within that team and just, you know, issues that bubble up when things go sideways late in the year. And he was a guy that kind of rose above that fray. And I had always said, like, one of the things that really started the undoing for Steve was not putting Lindell back in the starting lineup that year. Not because Lindell was better than Tyrese, but Tyrese wouldn't have cared. Lindell cared. Lindell wanted to start like, and he almost went pro after his freshman year and came back. Like, so there's some serious expectation there
Yeah.
that you're getting the keys to the kingdom there, and then you get benched because of an injury. And I had always said, like, Lindell cares, Tyrese doesn't. Like, just swap them out. And that never happened. And then, like, I think that contributed to how things ended at the end of the year. But my point is that Haliburton, you could tell, like, he wanted to win, he wanted to empower his teammates. And like that was the thing that always stood out. And like the thing that always cracked me up, and I don't know if I've ever told this story or written it, is I remember talking to Steve after the year. And that was like at that point, Tyrese was a bona fide NBA prospect. Like probably would have gone in the first round that year. Like maybe not, like back half of the first round. People were really excited about him after that freshman year. And I remember calling Steve just to talk through some things. And I was like, I assume Tyrese is going to go through the pre-draft process just to get a gauge of where he is. And this only reinforces like what we've heard Tyrese talk about how it was a really tough decision for him to leave after his sophomore year. What Steve told me was, yes, Tyrese is getting his wisdom teeth pulled out, so he doesn't really want to deal with going through the pre-draft process. I was like, wait, what? Like, I don't know if that was the only reason, but that was the reason Steve gave me. Like, he didn't want to be bothered because he had to get his wisdom teeth pulled out. And I thought that always spoke a lot to Tyrese's personality and character, and that like he didn't want to leave. He wasn't in a hurry to leave and go to the NBA and push the timeline in a way that I think maybe you saw Talen Horton Tucker do. Now, again, Talen Horton Tucker won a ring, has made millions of dollars in the NBA. So I'm not like killing him for that decision. I think it was probably a good decision. But maybe like you look at like if him and Tyrese come back as sophomores, like, ooh, that would be interesting. And I think Talen Horton Tucker, because of being a highly touted recruit being young. Remember, he didn't turn 18 until like November of his freshman year. I think was in a big hurry to get to the NBA. Like that had been his plan, where it wasn't Tyrese's plan. And so he took a more patient approach, and obviously that paid off. But it always cracked me up that like, no, I'm not gonna go. Like, I'm not gonna waste my time when I got to get my wisdom teeth pulled out.
The NBA can wait for my wisdom teeth. That's
Exactly. I'm just being like,
hilarious.
oh man, that speaks to Tyrese, just not being in a hurry.
Um, so it's been interesting this week. You're seeing people on social media, they talk about they're surprised about, Tyrese Haliburton and his play, the Pacers as a whole. You have guys like LeBron James talking about how he's not surprised by Haliburton's play. Has there been a moment for you that has surprised you, or has all of this that's unraveled these past few months from Tyrese kind of been expected?
This level of success, no. Like to me, that sophomore year of Tyrese, I felt pretty confident that he was going to be a future NBA All-Star. Like I thought that was the path. Like he was that good. But I thought it would be like in the prime of his career, like age 28, 29, 30. And I remember the Warriors came with their owner, their GM, and their assistant GM to a game at Hilton Coliseum. Like having those three levels of decision make an owner number one, let alone those other two levels of decision makers at a college game was I have never seen at Iowa State. And I don't think it happens frequently elsewhere. And at that time, the Warriors had, I believe, the number one pick. They ended up taking James Wiseman. Like they didn't have the number one pick at that time, but it was clear. I think Curry was hurt that year and that they were going to have a high pick. And I remember being worried for Tyrese or like concerned that, man, like you go number one, like you can't be an all-star in year 6, 7, 8. Like you were the face of the franchise immediately. I remember thinking like, man, he's really, really good. Like I think he's going to be an NBA all-star. But is that too much pressure for a guy that like I don't know that he's that. Like I don't think he's that actually. I did not think he would be a face of the franchise cornerstone player. I obviously got that one wrong. And I think I was as bullish as anybody about Tyrese. Like that dude's an all-star, in his late 20s. And now you see him as an MVP candidate in his early and mid 20s. And like I do think there's still room for him to grow. I think there's plenty of room for the Pacers to grow. I mean, because how old is Tyrese? 24, 25? Like, I mean, there is still a ton of basketball ahead of him. Not to mention he's got a $250,000 contract. That's pretty cool. Would not have predicted that. So I am surprised. I thought he would be this good. I thought it would be 3 or 4 years from now, and that'd be as good as it got. Like now you're looking at him like, is this dude a Hall of Famer? I mean, he was just won a gold medal with one of the best basketball teams ever assembled. He didn't play, but what are you going to do there? Like if you can't crack the Team USA rotation, I don't think that says much other than like you're not as good as LeBron or KD, right?
Which not
So
many
I
people
mean, I
are.
think like right now he's on a Hall of Fame trajectory, perennial MVP candidate trajectory, and I never in a million years would have predicted that at all. It's certainly not, in his whatever his fourth or fifth year in the NBA.
It was interesting when you're going through Halliburton's kind of because I forgot that UNI was a team that he was thinking of going to, which would be crazy to look back and think he could have been playing for Jacobson at UNI and would have dominated the Missouri Valley right away.
Which think about like how Iowa State has screwed over UNI in recent years. Like Doug McDermott would have gone there if Greg
Yeah.
McDermott wouldn't have left. Tyrese Haliburton may have gone there if he didn't go to Iowa State. And then I thought a few years ago that AJ Green was going to make his way to Iowa State. So yeah, like Ben Jacobson has had some close calls with like having generational talent up there in Cedar Falls. Like that's got to like you think coaches now are pulling their hair out over NIL? Like think about Ben, back then with Greg and Tyrese. Like you were this close to having
uh,
two lottery picks or two first round picks.
you were bringing up the names and like Horton Tucker, and I remember watching these guys because I used to go to every summer. I think was it called the Capital City Summer League, where you
Yep.
had Drake, a few UNI, not a lot of UNI players, but it was mostly Iowa State and Drake players would play in those little scrimmages.
Mm-hmm.
I miss that thing. As you as a reporter, did you go to those a lot? Was that a helpful tool to go and start to get familiar with these guys?
I love the Cap City League. Like I would be there. I think they had it 3 times a week. I was usually there two, I think, during the summer. Like it was a great low stakes way to spend time with and around players and fans. It was great for fans. Like I do think, obviously, like George Niang, Monte Morris, Naz Mitrulong, like those guys are legends and fan favorites no matter what happens. Like that's their games, their personalities, their willingness to engage. But I do think a big, or at least a chunk of that popularity you can trace back to the Capital City League because those guys are sitting in the bleachers at Valley Southwoods, signing autographs, shooting the breeze with anybody that comes around. Like they're running in late because they're coming from Ames. So like people see them as like the 19 and 20-year-old college kids that they are instead of, 14,000 people and the lights on at Hilton Coliseum. They can feel larger than life. And like these guys are still teenagers and in their early 20s. So like I love the Capital City League. I get why it's gone now and probably is never coming back. But
Why
that
did it
really
go
was
away? Is it just risk of injury?
um it originally started, the NCAA allowed it because there was no summer workouts available. So like this was the best way for them to get any sort of run consistently because like you mentioned, Drake was a part of it. You'd
Yeah.
also get some junior college guys, some high level high school players, and then even like I believe like some guys from like the Iowa Energy every now and again would play. Royce White played the summer before he got drafted. By Houston, I think in just one game. I think Craig Brackens would come through every
Yep.
now and
I
again.
remember going and seeing him.
Yeah, so
Yep.
it was really cool, but like it just had not, and like from Ames to West Des Moines, like it ain't an hour, but it's close. And like for those
Yeah.
guys to come down 3 times a week is asking a lot. Even they moved it to Ankeny for 1 year, still 25 minutes from North Ames. So it just became, I think, too big of an ask, and then too big a risk too with injury and all that. And they don't need it anymore because they get to practice however many hours all summer long. So yeah, I don't think that is ever coming back. And I don't blame, I mean, it's not just Iowa State; it's everywhere across the country. I don't blame them, but like that is a loss, and I do think it would be nice for them to try to figure out some sort of low stakes, free environment for because like that was a big thing too. Is you got a lot of little kids at those because parents could bring them for
Yeah.
free and they could run around. Like you can't really let your 3-year-old or 7-year-old run around Hilton Coliseum the way you can at Valley Southwoods on a Wednesday night. Um, so I do miss it, but it's one of those things. Like even at the time, I remember being like, "This is a great opportunity for fans and reporters." Don't know that it was so great for players, other than just a way to spend a few hours playing ball.
I loved it. My dad and I went to it all the time. I just cleaned out because my dad's moving, went into my childhood bedroom that I haven't stepped foot in since like 2010. So it was a time capsule, but found all the Cap City like roster sheets I'd kept and had George Niang sign, Reed
There you
Timmer.
go.
I loved it. It was the best. But yeah, it does make sense why it went away. But I do want to shift now over to you're getting ready to go to Ireland, like you said, in August. Just, I mean, that's an incredible get for Iowa State fans, the program itself, but also you reporters. That's an incredible trip right there.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be cool. I think like from a football perspective, the fact that it's a conference game, and not only a conference game, a rivalry game, like that
Yeah.
game is going to set the tone for the season immediately for either team. And I think like it'll be interesting to see how both fan bases react, win or lose. Like you win that game, man, you're riding high. Like it kind of feels like you got an early lap ahead on the rest of the Big 12. You lose that game, you're probably feeling pretty crummy about yourself. Like you go all the way, 1,000 miles or 2,000 miles, whatever it is, over across the ocean to go lose a football game. Like that stinks. That's not fun. You're 0-1 coming back to play. Who are they playing? South Dakota that week. Like
Yeah.
that's not going to be a ton of fun. Like so, there's a lot of pressure to win that game, which is great. Like I think I wrote in November of this last year of how terrible the start of college basketball is. This is the exact opposite. It's a great, like I wish it were our campus, frankly. Like I hate taking a rivalry game off campus, but this is obviously a pretty cool and unique opportunity for both of these teams, both of these fan bases to go play overseas. Like if you're going to take a game off campus, this is a lot cooler than playing at, in my opinion, Arrowhead or wherever else regionally you could play this game. It's obviously a great opportunity. I talked to Pollard at the tailgate tour. He said both Iowa State and Kansas State had sold over 10,000 tickets apiece.
Jeez.
So it's going to be Dublin is going to be awash in Midwesterners that last week in August.
Before I let you go, any big stories, anything fans should be expecting here soon from you and the Des Moines Register?
Oh, we're always working on things. I mean, it'll be really interesting to follow Tyrese through the finals, and then you get into the fall, and obviously, like Iowa State football is going to dominate. The interesting thing too, to stay in the professional ranks, is like, what does Brock Purdy's season look like now with that big contract and the expectations that come with it? And then you probably got another two top 25 basketball teams in the winter. So, I know we talked a lot last year about how exciting or how successful it felt like the entire athletic department was. It certainly was. I think it's got a chance to do that again this upcoming academic year. Like, I think football has a chance to be pretty good, but I think the floor is probably lower than it was last year just because there's so much turnover. Like, and you're in so many coin flip games in the Big 12 that I could see them having another great season, or I could see them struggling to recapture that. So I think there's a wider range of outcomes, I think, for this football team than last year. And then I think, when you get into winter, both basketball teams should be pretty good again. So there's gonna be plenty. Like you said, like this thing's year round.
A huge thank you to Travis Hines for hopping on the show. Travis has been someone who has been very, very helpful in my career, has been someone that hasn't shied away from any of my annoying questions or annoying texts as I get them on this show. But a huge thank you to Travis Hines. I'm sure we will talk with him more as he gets ready for Ireland with Iowa State playing against Kansas State to kick off the college football season. Cyclones men's basketball, all the hype that will surround that team, of course, coming this winter. We'll have it all here on the Media Row podcast. Now, before we talk about next week, need to give a shout out to Stevens Automotive and Sales. Big 3 reasons why you need to go check out Stevens Automotive and Sales over at 5320 Northwest Beaver Drive in Johnston, Iowa. Is they're family owned and located here in the state for 35 years. They have been loyal, and those are the people you are going to be dealing with over there in Johnston. They are people that are here for the long run, clearly, with their 35 years of family-owned and operated in Johnston, Iowa. Number 2 is communication. They are always on top of it. They are always making sure you understand exactly what's happening with your car and when it will be ready to get you back on the road safely. And number 3, one of the biggest reasons why I trust them the most is there's no BS. They will tell you how it is, and they will make sure you are ready and set to go. So go check out Stevens Automotive and Sales at 5320 Northwest Beaver Drive in Johnston, Iowa. 35 years of family owned and operated here in the beautiful state of Iowa. Go check them out. And when you do, make sure to let them know that Media Row sent you. Now, again, you guys do not want to miss Monday's show. I'm going to end this show previewing that. Huge deals, huge giveaways, something really fun and exciting for the whole family coming up this Monday. So make sure you tune in on Monday's show. It's a big thank you to Kelly's Little Nipper for helping get it started, and you'll have to listen on Monday to figure out exactly what you could win if you tune in. So we will see you guys on Monday. Thanks again for another awesome week. Rena Garcia, thank you. Thank you to Joe O'Donnell for hopping on, and of course Travis Hines for another fun week of the Media Row podcast.